Hey folks, if you check online, you should see your grade for reaction paper 1. And I wanted to make a few general comments that might be useful to everybody as we move forward with writing, although I know you're working on your annotated bibliographies now. The first one is APA, pretty clearly in the syllabus, which should be true for your entire program, is that APA is the citation style for education. So we really need to be meticulous about how we cite the sources that we use. And that means both parenthetically for things that you summarize, but absolutely for direct quotes. So several of you had problems with correctly citing direct quotes. A page number, I think I mentioned this early on too, but page numbers are always required for a direct quote, and that's not an APA thing, that's every citation style that's out there, MLA, Chicago, whatever it might be. So you simply have to include a page number for a direct quote. The idea is I should be able to go and find the source, pull the quote that you cited in your paper, make sure it's the correct quote, or even see the context around it to see if you got it right. So that's the way to think about it. Related to that, a couple folks had problems because of the Kleebard text that's talking about all these other writers and thinkers, but you would still cite that as Kleebard because that's what you read, right? So it might be something like G. Stanley Hall as quoted in Kleebard, but the Kleebard is the cite because that's what you read. Again, I could go back to Kleebard and see that on page 117 or whatever, is where you pulled the stuff from G. Stanley Hall. So you will always cite what you read, not necessarily the original source, unless you went and found them. So the implication is, if that's on your reference list, that's what you read and that's what you went and found. Also, reference lists are always required for every paper across the board in graduate school. Again, you might have other professors that aren't holding you to that, but I can't speak to that at this point. So there should always be a list of references. Again, remember that these papers for this class are reaction papers where what I'm trying to assess is your engagement with the ideas of the course. So the way to do that is to quote them, to paraphrase them, to put these ideas in conversation. You know, for example, how does the history that Kleebard lays out help you understand John Dewey's argument about the child versus the curriculum? Those of you that did that in the paper showed a much better understanding of the text that you've read and got a better grade. Also, I know that there's probably a few lower grades than what you're happy with for this first assignment. But if you remember, as we talked about in our first video, the idea here is for me to communicate what you need to fix. And what that is should be identified on your paper within Moodle. You can email me directly if you want more feedback on that. But lots of papers have what's, just quickly for my own shorthand, APA details. What that means is you didn't get it quite right. It's citing APA. That's either within the paper or in the reference list. And it is a little picky, and there's some tricky things about getting it right. But if one of your comments says APA details, that's what that means. In the syllabus, I recommended you pick up an APA style manual and just get that down because it's just simply a requirement for the course. Introductions are useful for a reader, even for a short paper like these are. They help kind of set the stage for what's getting ready to come in terms of your writing. So I think there was some really great examples of clear introductions that some of you used, and others not so much, where it was a little bit of a guessing game to see where the paper's going. So think about that. I also noted some awkward wording, or sometimes I use the word clunky, which means that the sentences aren't wrong. They're just kind of listed together in kind of a abrupt, almost listing of sentences instead of what a good paragraph sounds like when put together well. One of the words in writing there is called flow. So what you should be editing for is there a good flow between the sentences? All this is even more important now that we're stuck to online because I don't have much other way to kind of assess how you're engaging with the ideas. So I think your writing becomes even more important. I wrote edit on a lot of people's papers because my sense was that in a lot of cases, what I was getting was really a first draft, which really ought to be not the case. You ought to walk away from your paper for a little bit and then do a good edit on it and look for things like, little simple mistakes that are easy to do, whether it's the wrong word or an APA citation, or just something like sentence flow, where you could clean it up a little bit and wonder, is this clear enough? Am I saying enough about this concept to be really clear? This may sound picky, but really graduate school is primarily about writing. And so one of the things that we really stress in this course in particular, but across the programs, is that you're really working on your writing skills and that you're writing at the graduate level. This isn't undergrad anymore. And so we have higher expectations because of the higher degree to which you're working. Okay, hope this is helpful. And more to come. And then take a look at those comments, and hopefully those things can be addressed. And if they are, I think that'll be reflected in the grades. Thanks so much. And again, really hope folks are taking care and taking care of themselves and their families and their communities. Thanks so much.